So here's my messenger program for homework number 2. Um, the idea is to set up a program that can act as both a client and a server with just a basic messaging platform, essentially, or chat room. Um, so to start, we just have our main class. Everything's in the main class. Um, we check if our args array is of length 2 because the usage, no matter what, is either -s port or port hostname. Um, so then the first case, the first part of the if statement, I just set up a if else statement. And if the first argument passed in is not a -s, then we know we are in the client case, and the usage will be Java Messenger port number. So in this case, 1234, and then the host name, which is localhost. We will grab the host name from the second argument at index 1, and then we can parse an integer from the arguments array and store that in port. We set up our socket variable on line 28, and then we hop into a try catch block, because if we can't make a connection, there's going to be an IO exception, and we need to handle that case in Java. So first we're going to create a new socket with our host name and our port. The socket timeout is just in case we're not using it, or we can't make a connection, then we will let the client know that. We will set up a new output stream writer, so we use the socket's output stream and store that in the variable out so we can write to standard output. And then we enter a while block to be running the whole time the client is connected to a server. And we'll set up a input stream reader so we can take the user's input. And for each bit of input, we will read a line. So whenever the user hits enter, we will accept that line and process it. And in this case, processing it is writing it to standard output and then flushing the standard output or the output stream writer to make sure there's no characters left over. We won't run into this case because our input is pretty short, but just in case, it's good practice. Here's the catch block. So if there's an IO exception, we're going to print that to the console or the text file. And then in our finally block, we just do a quick null check to see if the socket is null, and we close the socket, and there can still be an IO exception. So we have another try catch block down here. On line 49, you can see the else case starts, where we will be handling the server case. So the example usage is Java Messenger -s to indicate that it's acting as a server, and then the port name that it will accept connections on 1234. So again, we parse the port number from the args array, and we have a try catch block to set up, a server socket. The server socket class is just to prevent a port conflict. It makes it kind of like machine agnostic. So we check if the ports are consumed already, are consumed by default before we start accepting connections on that port. Then we get our connection using server.accept. That opens the connection from the server side. And then we set up another input stream reader so we can get the input. Anything that's written to output from the client is input on the server side connection. So we get the connections input stream, and we have another while block to basically make a string from all the characters that are passed in via the input stream. So that's what we're doing here. We set up a string builder. We have an incrementer variable, and this is our variable to hold the characters before we cast them. So we take every character while there's not a new line or a -1, which is like the exit case. And we keep reading characters until there are no more, until there's a new line. We append these to our string builder as characters. Again, that's handling the exit case. And then once all the characters have been read from standard input and we see a new line character, we are going to print the string in reverse to standard output using system.out.print with a carriage return and a new line at the end. Once again, we need a catch block in case the server can't connect to a client or can't properly accept client connections. There's an IO exception, and there's a greater IO exception when we are instantiating the server socket on our port of choice. Thank you.